Okay, I'm delighted today to be talking to Joana Almeida. And people should know, Joana, this is the first time we've actually met in virtual form, but we've been working together for 2-3 years towards your book, which is going to be published May the 25th. And
Yes.
we haven't actually spoken to each other live. And I regret that very much because I've really great to meet you. So your book has got an interesting subtitle. It's about European mobility, but it's got a subtitle which is an interdisciplinary approach. And so perhaps you can explain a little bit about why the interdisciplinarity was important for you.
Yeah, sure. Well, first of all, thanks for the invitation. It's nice to finally meet you and talk to you. Well, why an interdisciplinary approach? Well, basically, I've been doing research for 13 years now and focusing specifically on student mobility and study abroad for 10 years. And one of the things I always felt that was missing was some systematization of the different pockets of knowledge. Because we are very concerned sometimes about reinforcing disciplinary voices, and we don't ask ourselves the sort of questions that we are asking about student mobility. What are the disciplinary assumptions behind the questions we ask about student mobility? So I felt the need to systematize the different disciplinary pockets of knowledge. And that's why I went for an interdisciplinary approach, because this was really what I needed when I started off my PhD in 2010. So I wanted to do something useful. So I thought this would be useful for other researchers.
Mm-hmm. And the danger is that we stick within our disciplinary pockets, as you say, or silos, as they're sometimes called. And when we have the opportunity to work across disciplines, we tend to ask more challenging questions because we've got different assumptions behind what we've got used to, what we've grown up with, as it were.
Yeah, so it's in a sense, it's what you were talking about with Elise, asking the right questions and reflecting on the disciplinary assumptions behind them. And there are different assumptions, but I think that we have been focusing more on the things that separate us or set us apart rather than the things that bring us together. Mm. Because if we think about people interested in international education aspects or international aspects of education, we are not only people trained in international and comparative education, we are people from different disciplines. Actually, it's a multidisciplinary scholarly community that I hope it will become an interdisciplinary one. So kind of having this relationship of integration rather than of proximity. So if we think about people interested in international higher education, I mean, we can mention quite a few disciplines: applied linguistics, sociology, human geography, general education, language education, cross-cultural psychology. So different communities have different standpoints. Mm. And sometimes we need to be more mindful that, well, kind of as if disciplines allow certain ways of thinking, but they exclude others. So maybe we should be more mindful of that.
Yeah, I'm always interested when I read about intercultural competence, which is being written from, say, an internationalization perspective, compared to if I'm reading about the language literature, for example, and Mike Byram's Savoirs, where he's talking about intercultural communicative competence, which is a very, very different perspective, and the two do not always recognize the literature and what's been done in each of those different areas. And I'm sure that's true across internationalization more generally. So it's very, very interesting to see, in this case, mobility from an interdisciplinary perspective.
Yeah, exactly. Because even about intercultural communicative competence, well, it has a specific standpoint because it builds on post-communicative approaches. So it sees the study abroad student both as a language learner and as a communicator. And people doing research about, for example, the internationalization of higher education, sometimes they are not mindful of this specific perspective. Mm. And for example, if I'm going to IALIC conference, right? I know that the researchers I'm going to find there are basically language professionals and applied linguists. So, and there's this specific perspective on intercultural competence that maybe people doing research on the internationalization of higher education are not completely aware of. So we need to be more mindful of other people's work.
It's
As a
just work either
community.
way, though, I think, because I've also come across linguists who, when they're in a situation where they can't use the language that they know, they don't have the tools really to communicate across cultures without having the cultural background and the language background. So in a way, it can work both ways, but without considering all of these different dimensions, we're not necessarily asking the right questions, exactly as you said. So asking the challenging questions is very, very important. Now, I think you mentioned to me also about challenging some established canons with regard to early career research and perhaps people who've been in the field a little bit longer. So your perspective as an early career researcher is very, very interesting on this.
Thanks. Well, I mean, when I submitted my book proposal to your series, I was very aware that your series had, a lot of established names in the field had published in your series. So I was very aware of that. But I also felt that I had things that I wanted to share, and your series was open to emerging career researchers. So in a sense, I saw it as an opportunity. And I think that early career researchers have the responsibility to bring kind of new ideas to the field while building on other people's work.
And also challenging established, longer standing researchers as well, and bringing new dimensions of it to the field. You're absolutely right. But there's a need for people like me and people of my generation, as it were, to try and encourage and help earlier career researchers to come on board with this. And it's not necessarily something that everybody's got the confidence to do. So the challenge of moving from writing journal articles and chapters and obviously lots of presentations and so on, but how was that? How did you position yourself to be somebody who was ready to write a book rather than some of those other dimensions?
Well, I've been thinking about it for a long time. Well, I was an exchange student 17 years ago. And so my motivation was very big. And as you know, I had a section in my book proposal about my own motivation to write the book. So that was a key factor. Of course, that I was mindful that there were established names in your book series, but I felt that I had also something to share. So it's kind of for early career researchers, the things that I think we need to ask ourselves is, well, do I feel ready to write a book? Am I mindful of how I want to contribute to the field? And I knew I wanted to contribute to the field by developing this interdisciplinary approach. I was very aware of it. And do I have an idea that it's good enough? That kind of idea that grows on you. It's not that an idea that I have today and tomorrow I wake up and I have a different idea. So I've been thinking about this for 17 years, and then I was an immigrant in the UK, so I've thought about this from different standpoints. So for me, for early career researchers, I think the questions we need to ask ourselves are, how do I want to contribute to the field? Do I have an idea that it's strong enough, original enough? And am I ready to commit some of my time to write a book? Because it's a big responsibility. So maybe if I tick all those boxes, I think I'm ready to write a book.
Absolutely. And the time factor is really, really crucial, isn't it? And but if I just give a perspective from my side on working with you, I was very impressed by your confidence and the fact that you really were ready to do this. And when you got the reviews back, partly from myself, but when the formal reviews came back from independent reviewers, you some things you were very robust about, and no, this is what I want to do, and I'm not quite sure you've got the right point here. But then others, you were very flexible and adjusted what you wanted to say, and then as we got into the book process, you were very, very responsive. So just to be clear, you were sending your chapters more or less one at a time, and getting feedback on each chapter as you were going forward, and that was then feeding into the next chapter. And not everybody adopts that same approach, but I thought it worked really well.
Well, and that's actually one of the reasons I went for your series, because an academic editor is it's a huge part of the process. And as an early career researcher, well, as I mentioned to you in the beginning, I would rather send you my chapters every 2 months to have your feedback, because I knew you would be my first reader and you would challenge my assumptions. So you were also interested in improving the book, and the end result will be better. So I knew the things I was sure of, and I knew the things that I was not so sure of. So when I received your comments, I took them positively, and I said, oh, this is an opportunity for me to improve. But I was also mindful of my ideas. So it was really nice, this process. It was a big learning curve for me, actually.
And the other thing that was really great was that you did challenge. I mean, I wrote things down and you didn't always agree with me, and sometimes you didn't take it forward in the way I'd suggested. But then other things, smaller things that I hadn't thought of as particularly important, you picked up on and went off in a completely different direction. So I mean, it was a really interesting, for me, it was a really interesting process, and it was quite different from all of the other books that I've worked on. But to be honest, actually, every book is different. Everybody, all of those in the series have been a slightly different process. But it was really interesting working with you. And I'm so looking forward to seeing the book finally come out.
Yes.
On the 25th of May, we'll say it again. But,
well, the pleasure is mine. It's what I said and what you said. I think that books are an opportunity for us to learn and systematize our ideas. So it's putting our ideas out there, being mindful of other people's ideas, and building on other people's work, and trying to make a sustained contribution to the field, and a field that it's very big.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I learned a lot from the book content, but I also learned a lot from the process, and working with you and seeing how that went forward. So it's really good for me as a series editor to constantly develop that. I mean, it's very, very helpful. But the other thing that I've learned from this process right here is, and it's partly to do with the fact that we're all in lockdown and we can't meet each other anyway, but whenever somebody sends me a proposal, get straight onto a Zoom chat with them and have a discussion with them. Don't do everything in writing. And so I've learned a lot from this as well.
Yes, it's very, very useful, because in our case, I've been sending you emails over and over again, and maybe it's easier for people to kind of explain their ideas a bit better. It doesn't invalidate the fact that they will have to write a book proposal, but that first conversation is really, really important. So yes, I think that's a great thing that you are doing these videos, because people get a feeling of what is involved in writing a book, and people become aware also of the different topics of interest in international education. So it's really
so hopefully what you've said today will encourage other people to come forward and put forward proposals, because there is that danger that you see the big names and you think, well, I'm not good enough to do this. But actually, really, if it's you're absolutely right. If the idea is a good one and you've got the time and the effort and the willingness to produce a book like that, then it's going to be an interesting challenge for me to try and get more people like you into the series.
Well, I hope to give it a try. And also, we can't forget that the book goes through peer review. So let the others do their work, because they will assess you. So I knew the book would go through peer review. I knew that you would have a final word on it. And then I didn't take things for granted. I knew that when I finished my book, you could say no. So so this is all part of the process. So if you have a good idea, then let other people do the work and assess you, and that's it.
Well, that's great. Thanks so much for sharing those experiences, as well as talking about, you know, the background to your book and everything. It's been really fascinating to meet you, Joana. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much.